How are you?
Good morning, ma'am. I'm very well today. Thank you. And you?
Very well. Thank you. Let's check the attendance first. Is there any absent today?
Ma'am.
Good job. So, students, today we are going to learn about narrative text, especially narrative text about fairy tale. Have you ever watched the Disney's movie?
Disney movie, yes, my movie.
What title?
I forget my Aladdin.
Okay, good job. So, students, this is the storyboard sequences about Cinderella. There was once this girl that had to work all day and night. Her name was Cinderella. So, students, what
Cinderella.
Cinderella, ma'am.
good job? Who was in the story?
Cinderella. And then I
Set.
Students, before we continue to the next material, let's see the video about Pinocchio together.
Upon a time, there lived a carpenter named Geppetto.
Students, what have you learned from the story?
Yes, ma'am.
Good job. And then let's play a game by quizzes.com. I have shared the link in Edmodo, so you can open your Edmodo and click the link to play the game. I'll give you 5 minutes to play the game.
yes, ma'am.
Yes,
I'll
ma'am.
do that.
Today, we are going to learn about the definition of narrative text, the purpose of communication, the structure of the text, and the linguistic elements of the narrative text. So, students, narrative text is a story with complication or problematic events, and it tries to find the solution to solve the problem. And then, the purpose of narrative text is to amuse or to entertain the reader with the story. And the narrative texts have the generic structure. They are orientation, resolution, complication, and reorientation or coda. Orientation sets the scene where and when the story happened and introduces the participants of the story, who and what is involved in the story. And then from the language feature, usually narrative texts use past tense like killed, drunk, adverb of time like once upon a time, one day, and etc. Time conjunction, when, then, suddenly, etc. Specific characteristic, and then action verb and direct speech. From my explanation, is there any question?
No, ma'am.
Good job. If there is no question, let's analyze the genetic structure and the language features from the story about Cinderella together. And the genetic structure of Cinderella, the genetic structure, orientation in the picture 1, and complication in the picture 2 until 5, and then from the resolution in the picture 9, and there is no reorientation or coda. From the language feature, past tense, for example, lived, done, was, invited, and etc. And understand, my students?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Good job. Please pay attention to these storyboard sequences about Rapunzel. I have shared the worksheet in Edmodo. I want you to make a group of 2, and then with your friends, please arrange the picture into a correct story. and then write a complete story into a good story, and after that, analyze your work based on the structure and the language features. You can discuss the answer with your friends through WhatsApp groups, Edmodo, or the Zoom. It's up to you. I'll give you 30 minutes to discuss the answer. Have you finished answering the question, my students?
Yes, ma'am.
Good job. Finally, I will name Rosalina as student number 1 and Sri
Yes,
Mulyani
ma'am.
as student number 2, and I will call the number of the student, and then the student who has the same number may answer the question. If I say numbered head together, please discuss the answer with your friends. And if I called the number of students, please student who has the same number as I called, share the answer in the Zoom. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Before that, please share your work in Edmodo so I and your friends can read your work. Let's start with the question number 1. Numbered head together to the number 1.
Yes, ma'am.
Good.
The generic structure of the story are the orientation is in the picture 1. This is once upon a time there was a marriage who was waiting a girl, and the complication in the picture 2 until 5. This is when the and the resolution in the picture 6. The prince took him to the palace and they lived happily ever after.
Okay, good answer. And then let's move to the next question. Numbered head together. Student number 2.
Yes, ma'am.
Good job.
Language feature of the story are first, past tense, for example, grew, past, called, etc. Second is adverb of time, for example, once upon a time. And the last one is action verbs, for example, walk, wait, and etc.
Good answer.
When something is destined to happen, then no one, by any of
But
their powers,
the
can
words
stop that
can
from
stop that
happening.
from
We should
we should
never
never
give up on
give
our
up on
hope, no matter how bad or
our
hard the
hard
situation.
situation.
Excellent. Today, we have learned about the narrative text together. So,
Yes, ma'am.
what is narrative text?
Narrative text is
It
a
is
story
a
with
story with
complication,
complication or problematic events,
or
and
problematic
it tries
events,
to
and
find
it
a
tries
solution
to
to
find the
solve that
resolutions of
problem.
the problems.
Good job. And then the generic structure of the narrative text are
There are orientation,
Orientation,
complication,
complication,
resolution, and
resolution,
closure.
and coda.
good answer. Okay, students, before we end the meeting today, is there any question about the material? If there is no question, I have shared the icon in Edmodo. Please open your Edmodo and pay attention to the tutorial. That's all for today.
And
Thank you and see you next week.